I cannot
Hey
hear you.
Tatiana, this is
Yes,
Kapil here. Can you hear me?
Kapil. Yes, thank you. Yes, I can hear
Oh,
you.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So sorry, I was just trying to get unmute and actually, okay, doesn't matter. Let me actually share my screen because that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, just give me 1 second. And okay, I'm just trying to get it to full screen so that uh, we can actually start from the beginning, right?
Can see it.
You can see it?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. So, hey everybody, and hi Tatiana. Thank you so much for actually, giving the space to talk about this new line of business altogether in these really exceptional times. And as I read through and based on everything that we talked, I thought it is really exciting as well as apt to be able to talk about something like this. uh, Now, I mean, again, you can tell me how we need to go through the conversation, but I would love to talk through the story of the what and the how, and go into a little bit details about, what we have and how it is relevant in the times today. Does that sound right, Tatiana, to you?
Yes, it does, but I'm muted to like not interfere with your presentation. Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Kapil Tandon. I actually am the global product lead for a product which is actually known by the name Dynamics 365 Fraud Protection. It's a first-hand product that actually utilizes AI in the truest of senses, and it's quite a journey altogether in terms of how and where we started and how we brought it to market all up. And I think it's very pertinent in the times today. Like Jared was talking, this is the year that actually everything went to the cloud. And I think when we, double click on it, basically, what you see is that all the businesses actually went online. And I'm pretty sure that you are all are very aware of that, literally every business went online. And as people went online, the interesting part is that so did fraud, or basically anomalies associated with transactions, and all kinds of cyber crimes actually came into being. I think we're all very aware of every one of the things that I was saying. So how did Microsoft get in the journey, and how did we get a timing of actually bringing a product to market which is very timely based on the needs? Well, this is where I would love to tell the story of, Microsoft itself. So I don't know whether if you guys are aware of this, but Microsoft, even as a e-tailer, which is basically an e-commerce company, we are among the top 10 in the world. So we actually do a lot of transactions a year. We have a ton of users, and we literally sell everything which you see on the screen, which comes between online stores and invoices for purchases based on online transactions, all the Microsoft signups, Azure cloud services, or you name it, Office 365, Teams, everything, that's all online. And of course, anything that's online is susceptible to all kinds of fraud. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about, what that means, and, how that all plays in. And because of that, this entire work actually started literally 5 years ago to protect our own e-commerce platform. And as we did the work and as we saw solutions from outside, we really couldn't find a fit. And hence we got into the business of actually trying to protect ourselves. And because we were using our technologies to be able to do these things, to be able to understand, how to actually utilize anomaly detection, which is what basically fraud is all about. It's anomalies, which happen in transactions, accounts, etc. to be able to mark them, that we actually develop the product for ourselves. And as we develop the product for ourselves, the realization was that we really thought that the world needs it because of the way it's been developed. And I'm going to go a little bit more into, what I'm being a little cryptic about. But that's how the thought process came about. And basically, this is what we had seen internally. And as you can see, it's a huge uplift. So, what we saw is when you actually are able to detect all these anomalies, using the right technology, which is again coming from our own stack, you're able to really change the spectrum of fraud altogether. And we're talking about revenue lifts of more than 8%, all up just on banking, plus another 2% on revenue itself, on false positives, and actually having an impact on operational, savings itself. Again, all of this add up to a lot, for literally every company. And I'm talking about 10% and plus. And this is all very measurable. Unlike a lot of other things, this is measurable benefits that you get when you actually have the right protection, the right security protection or the right fraud protection all up. Because it's all one, if you think about it, because it's all about anomalies. So let me talk a little bit about, again, we talk about the fact that, there's a lot of revenue at stake, and obviously, there's a lot of spend on fraud as well. uh, Very quickly, I did want to get into, a little bit about how we see the journey, and this is something that you would be very familiar with as people went online. Be it, on M365, be it on Teams. There is accounts, there is account logins, there is account activity, there is purchases which are being made, in terms of different things, right? And it can be any platform. It could be Zoom or you name it, right? And we have all these kind of activities that happen in the online spectrum. And now you can imagine that this is happening across the board for every business. Doesn't matter what they're using, but they actually deal with all of these things, across the board. And if you look very closely, in reality, this is all about anomaly detection. It's all about, thinking about how to protect accounts, how to protect purchases, and then it's also about how to protect losses in terms of, when you look at returns or discount fraud or internal employee fraud. Those are all kinds of losses, which you need to understand for understanding anomalies. Now, again, in terms of what people are facing, there are different things associated with this which people face, right? So what did we do? And I wanted to get to the heart of it because, my journey itself, I've been with Microsoft for the last 20 years. I spent the last 15 with literally M365, and I was trying to develop, an AI-based system which would actually, provide propensities to understand what is it that we can provide our customers with in terms of the best business value. What's the use case that our customers want from us? And that was based on data sets that we had, based on journeys that we had about customers and what they had actually bought from us, what they were utilizing, and, trying to understand, hey, can we predict in terms of, what are the best things that fit for our customer base? And, obviously all of that is associated with data. Now, as I got to this, and this is why I got excited about this project, was that this was actually truly AI at work. And there's a lot of innovation which was done here. Now, when you think about anomalies and anomaly detection or AI, AI is all about data. It all starts with data. And you need to have a lot of data to be able to understand patterns, right? And I'm breaking it down in the simplest form, right? Because basically what you're trying to look for is that you have lots of data sets, and in those data sets you can find some common patterns. Now, the thing that's very critical is that typically when you're trying to do this, you run into problems associated with privacy and, all kinds of identifiable information. And the thought process was that you absolutely need those kind of data sets to be able to understand how to take out anomalies and uh, how to really understand what to do with the data and how to use AI. Now, the beauty about what was done here over time, which is a really major innovation in my mind, and we think it is because that's what we've heard back from our customers as well, is that instead of using private information or actually using identifiable information, actually what over time we understood and saw as we were building our own systems is that there was no need of PII. You could actually totally anonymize the signals, hash the signals, and then put them into a central database, which is what we call the fraud protection network. And these hash signals had anomalies in them, which again didn't have to be touched by the human, and it was AI first. So basically the models were getting trained on this non-PII hashed data, which was looking for anomalies, and it kept on becoming powerful because the signals kept on coming in from all our network to start with, right? So basically everything coming from the billions of transactions Microsoft was having, it actually fed in. And then based on the technology that we had developed, where we didn't need any PII, we did not need any personal information, as we actually launched this service out to customers itself, now we have e-commerce or commerce customers, even AAD, B2C customers, who actually utilize our service. And basically, the way it works is their data and their PII data is kept in a totally different Azure trust boundary. So it's an Azure stack, it's like it's on a Azure tenant where it's kept totally, secure for them. And the only thing that goes into the fraud protection network is, the anonymized data sets or the hashed data sets, which actually feed these anomaly signals altogether. Now, there's a critical part behind this, and there's a and I'm again going into a little bit detail about this because it's important to see how AI can truly work without PII or any of those information sets that people think are needed. When you have these signals and these data signal base is being built, and even though it's totally anonymized, all these anomalies are actually being built. You can imagine over time, the power of the network starts to trigger in, and the anomaly detection becomes better over time. And that's exactly what we're seeing based on our data sets and how this all triggers. The anomalies that we have, and the anomaly detection that we have has improved to an amazing level altogether, that we really do believe that we actually have one of the biggest networks altogether of these fraud anomalies, which help us in protecting our customer base, and be it any type of accounts or transactions. But that's the baseline of it. And that is truly how you can actually have AI working, because you have large data sets with patterns which AI can learn from. And that's how it becomes an AI first class citizen, which is truly helping uh, you know us humans all up and customers, versus getting in the way in some way where it's something where we would find it a little bit apprehensive, or we would find it coming in our way. So it's truly where we really think this is the way that AI should be utilized to be able to help us in doing things better for better for all of us. So that's the principle around this. And then of course, this is a little bit more about the fact that how the data flows, and how it flows very seamlessly from our customers into the tenant, where it stays in terms of any PII data. But the fraud protection network is the only place where anonymized data sets go for anomalies, which again takes anomalies out also to detect everything real time. All of this is done in literally milliseconds altogether, between 200 to 400, 500 milliseconds, depending on where you're at. So it's really done in milliseconds. And you know your transactions, your accounts are protected based on this technology, and that's the heart of what we do. And not only that, we also have what we call a transaction acceptance booster, which allows risk score to go to the banks. We have partnership with banks, which again also allows for much more positive enforcements from banks versus seeing a lot of rejections coming back from banks around transactions, etc. So that's the heart of what we do and how we brought AI to life. And you can now imagine that when we think about it, like I was telling you, there are three main areas. Obviously, it's about transactions and protecting transactions. It's about accounts, account takeover, account creation, and then also about loss prevention, which is all kinds of stuff that happens in terms of internal risk, management in a lot of ways associated with discounts and return frauds and employee fraud all up. So now when you think about this, as we were talking about M365 business, and as we talk about all kinds of online businesses, you can imagine that obviously account protection is at the heart of everything. Everybody needs account protection in the right ways, because we have so much of bot attacks and all kinds of different cyber attacks happening on accounts, where accounts are taken over, including account sign-ins are done. And imagine this kind of a technology actually helping you through your thought process, as well as through an engine which actually just with very baseline APIs integrates into your engine to help you give protection real time. Again, it's like purchase protection, account protection are literally working in milliseconds altogether. So basically they actually are protecting you as things happen. And you can imagine, because of the anomalies which we have in our database, which are the anonymous anomalies, it really is a very cumbersome, or it's a very comprehensive set of data which actually helps protect you, right? So those are the three primary things that we have in market, and we brought out in market to utilize AI to be able to provide this baseline service for you, to be able to protect yourself in terms of keeping yourself secure, keeping your transactions secure, keeping your accounts secure, as well as managing internal risk. So that's how I say it, and it's a great story all up, to be able to think about how we bolster Azure ADB to see, with account protection, to really give that end-to-end, solution which is needed in the world today, especially as everything moved online. So a little bit about the three capabilities. I'm not gonna go into the example, I think, but I do want to go into some of the unique capabilities that we have, like for purchase protection. And again, I do. I mean, I can go into a lot of details, but I would love to actually also stop and see, if you guys have questions, and if you have other things that you want to ask me about, please do. And then I can actually continue, sharing with you some of the things about what we've done around each of these capabilities. So I'm going to stop here for a second just to see if there are some questions, and uh, you know if which are the parts that you're finding interesting, and what, if you want, I should dive into a little bit more deeper. Anything, Tatiana, or should I continue?
Well, I didn't see any questions. I just remember that one of the registrants participants wanted to know just more about the system and what you do, how you do, and how you shall try it, how you can try it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good one. Okay. So actually, let me answer that. So, basically, if you want to learn more about it, we actually have it all on the website. You can go on to Dynamics 365 fraud protection. If you search for it, you'll actually get to the website, and as you go into the pages, you'll actually have the ability of filling up a contact me form, to actually get a trial started. The other way is you can also send me an email at kapilT@microsoft.com, and send me your queries, as well as if you want to start a trial, we have a 90-day trial where you can actually get started. Now, how do you get started? Actually, getting started is very, very easy because it's an API driven service. So it's basically an engine that we have. We provide you with that engine, and you just need to integrate, literally 3 to 6 APIs to get these functionalities working with your system. Like, for example, purchase protection works with your commerce system. So what would happen is, you would actually integrate, the APIs with your existing commerce system, and you could have any of the commerce systems, it doesn't matter. It's really not dependent on the fact that you need other things with Dynamics 365. It's totally agnostic. It works across the board with every solution, right? So purely API driven, basically, we give you the documentation, we actually help you. Our engineering actually helps in even getting you API integration done so that you can actually get started, and basically, the transactions start flowing through, and the engine starts working, and you start getting reports about what we're seeing as fraud, and where do we think, again, the engine works in terms of it's pretty automated, and it actually stops the fraud, and it gives you reports about what is being stopped and why, and it also gives you the ability to actually have or create your own rules to modify a little bit of what you think is the level of risk that you want to take based on what your store is trying to do. So that's purchase protection, but same thing for account protection. you know Account protection is also API driven, and imagine this, that again, you actually integrate the APIs with your system, with your existing system, which actually manages accounts. And this system is an engine which actually starts ingesting the data and start looking for all kinds of anomalies, as customers are signing in, as customers are actually joining in into actually signing into their accounts, or actually creating new accounts and doing activities. The system continually monitors for anomalies, and if it sees anomalies, it blocks, or gives out reports to say, what, this is happening, let's stop it. Or the bigger ones, it actually stops automatically, and it lets you do some rules on top, if you think there's some things which are acceptable versus not. But that's how that works. So it's rather simplistic in terms of how it works, because it's easy API integration with your existing system, and it just turns on. And our engineering is ready to help. We do have a 90-day trial, and if you want more details about any of these services, is available on Dynamics 365 Fraud Protection website. I am going to go into some of the details about the workings of each of the service as well here. And like I said, please feel free to connect with me at kapilT@microsoft.com, and I'm very happy to help in getting you started with trial, or getting you any kind of whatever documentation you need to be able to understand this better. So I hope that answers the question that Tatiana was asking. But I'll continue, and let's go into the little bit details about the three services all up. So the first one is purchase protection. And there are four key things, key areas in purchase protection, and you see it on your screen. The first one being the adaptive AI technology. The second one being the fraud protection network. The third one being the transaction acceptance booster. And the last one being the customer escalation tool. Now, what does that mean? So let me talk through, what really is the sentiment behind each of these things that we are talking about. When we talk about adaptive AI, now, when I describe to you how the service works, you can imagine that, this service, especially because it's all about transactions, is connected to a commerce system, and it's looking for all kinds of anomalies, which basically the machine learning system, the AI system, is learning from to be able to protect, the merchant all up from any kind of transaction fraud. Now, what is the adaptive AI part? Look, as a merchant, as a customer, we know that everybody has different risk averseness, right? it's like, I may be willing to take a little bit more risk than you are, because in my business, I sell things which are of 50 cents per piece versus what you sell is $50 per piece. Your losses would be higher if you actually took risk. My losses are not that high. And there's a profitability balance which is there associated with how much risk you are able to take, because sometimes when you actually tighten up too many things or too much, you lose some of the good transactions as well. And the system allows you to see this balance and be able to make the call in terms of what you feel is the acceptable risk. Now, that is what and why we call it the adaptive AI technology, because it's AI first. It utilizes all the anomalies and all the anonymous signals to be able to, parse out, utilizing AI, you know, how to protect against transaction fraud. But then it allows you with rules to be able to say, this is what, I want to be able to do for my business. So basically, you're able to adapt that AI to use it the way you think it's acceptable for your business. So that's what we mean by adaptive AI. So it's AI first, but adaptive, for your business to be able to customize it, per your business needs. So that's the first part. The second one is about, and let me actually cover the fraud protection network as well. So the fraud protection network, like I talked to you a little bit earlier as well, imagine this having a database of all the anonymized signals which go into a single place. And basically, those are all the anomalies which are helping build a basically a network of fraud signals, so that if by chance that signal becomes visible anywhere in the network, it can actually, the AI can actually detect very quickly and protect, based on that. Because at the end of the day, it's signal mapping, or pattern matching, right? Which AI does. It says, oh, I see this, there's an anomaly going on in this purchase node, and the anomaly is very strange all up, because the location changed, or because all of a sudden, the name changed, or even though the credit card details are same, there's some funkiness associated with the medium or the device that's using it has changed. And it flags it, catches it, so that any kind of those kind of fraud transactions can be caught in time versus having to deal with after the fact. Now, that is very critical altogether if you think about it, because when you deal with some of these things after the fact, because sometimes you do catch these things after the fact, there is an operating expense, because every time you have these chargebacks, etc., there'll be operating expenses altogether. So that is what, a fraud protection network is all about. It's basically a network of data from all the merchants which provide anonymous signals, to be able to, have this anomaly detection system, to be able to protect against fraud. So that's fraud protection network all up, which is a very critical piece. And I'd actually gone over it, before as well. Now, the next part is about the transaction acceptance booster, which is also very, very important, because, you know, if you have dealt with banks and the rejection rates as banks, it's a huge loss for businesses altogether. And the reason why the loss is there is because banks are blind. They do not get transaction data. They just get pure transactions, baseline transaction data from from customers, or merchants, but they don't get the underlying information all up. So they are trying to do their level best to be able to protect themselves against fraudulent transactions. Now, because we are able to send them, a trust knowledge booster, or basically a trust knowledge signal, and they know that we've worked with them over time, and they know that we are a trustworthy source, they are able to accept or reject transactions based on that additional data set. That actually helps the merchant in accepting more of the transactions, because we are able to provide that trust knowledge while keeping the bank still secure, and ensuring that fraudulent activities are very low, hence they suffer, lesser losses altogether. And what we've seen over time with our key partners like American Express, Capital One, is that they actually have seen an increase in revenue, right? While seeing a decrease in fraud. So they are super happy partners altogether. And that's the same effect that we see on our merchant base or our customer base. They are ecstatic about the fact that they actually saw a boost in revenue, while they still see, a lowering of fraud altogether. So that's the transaction acceptance booster. Now, the last part is the customer escalation support tool, which is also a very critical piece altogether. The reason why this is critical is because, look, the entire system is very automated altogether, but you do have the part where customers may call up and say, hey, your system detected this, but it actually detected it incorrectly. And, it happens less, but it does happen that, a customer may have changed their address or may have done something, which they did it correctly, but our system detected as an anomaly. So they do need the ability to be able to flag this for the system. And our system actually provides the customer merchant with the right UI to be able to see a transaction, be able to note down this, actually make the customer in the safe list, or block them because they feel, yep, that is actually wrong, and we actually have to block them forever, because that definitely is a fraud. So it gives them a little bit of a ability to be able to control, and be able to support the customer much better by being able to look at it. And not only does that do that, it also gives the information about why it was rejected or approved in the first place in pure English, which helps a customer support agent to be able to really provide the right customer service. So it's a very critical part, especially when you're actually protecting transactions. So that's in a nutshell everything about purchase protection and how the service works, and what and how we provide value. Now, uh, going into account protection. Account protection is again a very interesting service altogether. In fact, this is the service that we're seeing a need for across the board in the world right now, based on what's happening. Because as businesses moved online, as people started doing a lot of transactions, and they started creating a lot of accounts, we've actually seen a massive increase in cyber activity altogether, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of accounts, and accounts being hacked, and account information being leaked, as well as account creation, which is being done to actually take out huge chunks of profits from businesses altogether and across the board. This is not about just retail or one industry. Accounts are everywhere. Accounts are in governments. Accounts are in finance. Accounts are in retail. Accounts are in manufacturing. I mean, they buy things from different people and everything. So accounts are everywhere. Literally everything that we do, has an account. And you can imagine that because of where we are with the current situation, it's really escalated to a level, or basically accelerated to a level that is unimaginable. And with that, account fraud has accelerated to levels which are unheard of altogether. So how do we do, and what do we do here? Again, it's again an AI based system that we have. It's AI first. And these are the critical things that you actually get with account protection. And again, like I said, it's an API based system. It's just literally 3 to 5 APIs which get connected to your account system. And then, basically our engine provides a service of providing you the protection for accounts all up. The first one obviously is the adaptive AI technology. It's still the same that I talked about. It's basically the AI, where we actually have all the anomaly patterns from anonymized signals altogether coming from all the network. And you have the ability to adapt it a little bit to be able to understand, okay, for my situation, I have these kind of rules which work better for me. So you have the ability of customizing the AI, on top of, how it works. So that part of the engine still is there for you in account protection as well. The second part, which is very critical, in account protection, is bot protection. And this is all, and bot protection is a very, very big thing in account takeovers and account fraud all up, because it is the most prominent, set of things happening today in terms of how bots attack, and actually get access to accounts, and take over accounts, as well as create fake accounts, and then do a lot of transactions. And it's done very quickly because that is also an automated system altogether, which creates havoc. So the ability to actually be able to detect this as well as protect against this in real time is very, very essential. And because of our AI signals and our AI database, which actually has all this data, which is the anonymized data, actually helps look at all these anomalies associated with it, which says, oh, this is what typically the bot attacks look like. Hence, we will stop these kind of things. Helps in protecting against bots. But along with that, there are special algorithms which have been written just because this is so prominent all up in accounts, that it actually provides that extra layer, an advantage all up to be able to protect against them. And then it's device fingerprinting. And let me actually, sorry, I should have gone in. So then it's a little bit about device fingerprinting as well. And device fingerprinting is very critical altogether. And device fingerprinting does not mean that we need personal information. It's about the fact that, imagine you are able to correlate that this is the kind of transactions that come from this device, this device, this device, this device, and this is the set of devices which seem to be good, versus these other devices which seem to be not good, or these are the devices which are a little bit one off, in terms of the transaction and the transaction maps altogether. And that's the part that our system needs, not the personal information, to be able to say, what, there is something funny happening here in terms of, which devices are being utilized for what, and based on that, the ability for it to actually utilize the hash data or the anonymized data and the anonymized signals patterns to be able to catch it is huge. So bot protection and device fingerprinting are really huge in terms of account protection, because they are the key to be able to protecting accounts as well as account creation fraud or account takeover itself. Then fraud protection network is still the same. We talked about it. Here again, it comes in super handy, all up. It's huge all up in terms of how this works. And uh, that data set is what really is the heart of it. And of course, we literally have, what I want to say, is among the biggest of the data sets around fraud patterns to be able to protect our customer base itself. So, I mean, again, that's what account protection is all about. It looks at different things about associated with account creations, and it gives you the ability to actually adapt some of these based on the signals that we are seeing, and you can actually create policies associated with that. And again, it works very similar to how the transaction one works, and like I said, it works in literally milliseconds altogether. So it's a real-time protection, for you, or near real-time protection for you, and for your customer base. Last but not the least is loss prevention, and this is all about internal losses altogether. It's associated with the ability to understand, you know in stores or in your business, where the vulnerabilities are associated with internal risk. And basically, this is a much more simpler system, because it's actually not real-time API integration, but what it does is you actually are able to take out the data from your stores, or take out the data from your company, and around certain things associated with internal risk, and are able to upload that into your Azure tenant, in the service. And basically, it gives out a report, an anomaly report, which tells you, these are the places where we see that, you might be actually vulnerable. And then basically, based on that data set, and, that ability to be able to see that visibility associated with these anomalies, you're able to take the next action. Now, in this case, we don't take the action. Like, for transaction protection or purchase protection, we take the action. Basically we prevent transactions from going through, or we let the transactions go through based on the rules and the AI which is at work. For account protection, we again stop the bot attacks, stop any kind of account takeovers and account creation based on the rules and the AI that has been set. You know what I'm saying? And you're able to get the full visibility, but the system works for you, automatically, right? But here, it's much more in your hands where you actually upload the data. We give you a report. We give you all the insights. It's a Power BI, report which gives you data sets associated in a lot of detail around, what's happening in store. Let's say with return fraud and discount fraud, and you're able to see all the stations. You're able to see and understand all those things, and then take the next best action. It could be that you actually go talk to employees. It could be that you actually restrict some of the discount codes, or you actually have better return policies altogether, or you actually understand, oh, these are the places and these are the stores and these are the employees which are at risk altogether. And again, the key elements here are adaptive AI, which we talked about. The fraud protection network also comes into play, because the anomaly reporting is done based on those anonymized signals all together, and that helps. There's the enhanced loss prevention system with analysis against fraud. There's the BI reporting, which I was talking about, and the operational efficiency booster altogether. And again, the basic steps of how the data is ingested, the model training and the evaluation, and how it actually then comes out for you to be able to see and understand exactly where there's likelihood of fraud, where there isn't, and be able to dig into depths altogether to say, oh, these are the terminals, this is where I see it, this is where the risks are, and what I want to pay attention to. All of that is actually primarily available to you through the system. So at this point, I do want to stop. I see that I'm at literally time, and I did want to leave the last 4 minutes odd, for questions, concerns, answers. And I did want to leave you with the basic call to action, which is, hey, if you want to learn more, go to the website Dynamics 365 Fraud Protection. You will be able to learn a lot more about the system. Or this entire system is a little bit unique altogether, because we charge by transactions. It could be we charge by, for things like purchase protection. It could be 10 cents or 7.5 cents or 5 cents, depending on how much transactions you're actually sending us through. Or for loss prevention, it could be a cent, or much lower than a cent per transaction, depending on how much data that you're actually sending through. So it's basically based on transaction side that the pricing is based on. Again, the website has those details as well. But if you want, please feel free to actually connect with me. My email address is kapilt@microsoft.com. I'd be super happy to help, as well as get you started on the free 90-day trial. Or if you have any more questions and concerns, or want to learn more about it, happy to go into more details as well. So I'm going to stop here just to open up the floor and answer questions, uh, as well as any other queries all up. And thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.